Hey guys, Tim here with another episode of Mobility with Tim after quite a long hiatus. I got a pretty quick episode for you today, this time talking about the thoracic spine, which is the mid and upper back, and improving thoracic spine mobility with our good friend, the foam roller. Before we get going on just one kind of technique tip I have for foam rolling that area, a little bit of background info about the thoracic spine in general. So your thoracic spine pretty much runs from the base of your rib cage all the way up to the bottom of your neck. So it kind of comprises, space-wise, the majority of this central canister, of this thorax, which kind of runs the whole show. So in a normal kind of standing posture, what we actually want is a slight forward bending, a slight flexion of that thoracic spine. It's not normal to have kind of this rigid bamboo, just kind of straight up and down spine. So a little bit of that thoracic flexion, just day to day throughout your life, is normal and is actually desirable. Two big reasons why that's really, really important to have, and why if you're walking around overextended in that T-spine, that might not be the best thing for your kind of long-term health. So that slight forward bend of your thoracic spine, which keep in mind is 20 to 30 degrees in most folks, it actually gives the shoulder blade, the scapula, which is shaped kind of like a C, it's concave, it gives the shoulder blade something to sit on. So it enhances kind of just structural stability of the shoulder complex. If we overextend throughout that thoracic spine, that C-shaped scapula, C-shaped shoulder blade, has nothing to sit on. So you need a little bit of kyphosis for just kind of structural stability of that shoulder complex. The second reason we want a little bit of that thoracic kyphosis would be that at the bottom of the rib cage, we have the diaphragm, which is your kind of largest and most effective muscle of respiration. And it sits, like I said, right at the bottom of that rib cage. It functions by going from this domed state to flat state and then back up to being domed. It is domed when we have slight thoracic kyphosis, and it is put at a position of mechanical disadvantage, if you will, when we overextend and we flare those ribs. So if we see hard rib flares on one or both sides, then we can reasonably assume that the diaphragm on one or both sides is being put in a position where it can't effectively drive breath. This is when we start to see people breathe with their necks, people breathe with their backs, heck, even use their hip flexors just to try to draw air in because their diaphragm isn't put in a position to kind of do its job. That being said, we do want to get some degree of thoracic extension with movements like front squatting, with overhead type movements, because if we are forward flexed in a front squat, we're gonna bail on that bar, and if we are too forward flexed in an overhead press type motion, we're not gonna be able to get that range of motion from the shoulders that we need. So although we want to anchor the lower ribs down to be stable kind of throughout that low back, we still do want the ability to reverse that thoracic kyphosis and have some straightness to that mid and upper back in certain exercises when it would be desirable. So hopefully that makes sense. Keeping all that in mind, I see a lot of people in our gym kind of trying to get after this thoracic spine extension with the foam roller. And I see one big technique mistake being made over and over and over. So keep in mind, normal thoracic spine position is 30 degrees of forward flexion. The most extension that we can get here is really just reversing that kyphosis. We're not looking to drive all of that extension from the thorax. And people tend to overdo it in the gym. So, things I like to cue when folks are trying to improve that thoracic extension with a foam roller would be active abs and ribs down. So what I see in the gym is people getting overzealous trying to get extension there, and they'll just start extending throughout the whole back, and you can see just based on where my belt buckle went there, I'm not really even effectively extending through that thorax. I'm just anteriorly tipping that pelvis and extending through my low back. And we know from old episodes, extending through the low back is not a good thing, either in terms of injury or in terms of performance on key lifts. So what we want to do is stabilize the pelvis and the low back so that we can effectively mobilize what we're actually trying to do with this drill. So things to think about would be getting the foam roller in the thoracic spine, hips up, and I'm gonna keep my abs on so that my ribs are not flared, and then I can start to work that slight extension throughout the thoracic spine, not letting my hips drive down and not letting these ribs flare, because both of those would be telltale signs that you're actually extending from the pelvis and the low back and not from the thorax. So hopefully that made sense. Just one easy kind of tweak on a drill that most of you guys are already doing can make it way, way more effective at actually improving the exercises, improving the positions that you're trying to go after. Thank you so much for watching.